All right. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Untherapeutic. I'm super excited today. We have Dr. Ebony, who is going to share a little bit more about herself and a lot of the amazing things that she's into. I'm not going to steal the shine, so I'm gonna just hand it off to you, Dr. Ebony. Kind of share with everybody. Look, first, let's just start a little bit about yourself. Then we'll kind of get into the topic today.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Dr. Ebony. I'm a licensed psychologist. I practice in Texas, and through the SciPact, I'm able to provide teletherapy to people in over 35 states. My primary area of work in my practice is trauma recovery for Black women and other women of color, helping them find their voice, regain their power again after trauma. And I'm also a food relationship strategist in which I help people understand the harmful impact of diet culture and how to approach our relationship with food from an anti-diet lens. I'm also the creator of My Therapy Cards, which is a collection of therapy card decks that I created to help people, especially Black people, dive deeper into some of the things that may be getting in the way of them living the lives that they feel like they need and deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna just go ahead and put this out here. I'm gonna say you're the first to come up with the My Therapy cards. I've seen a lot of kind of, you know, I ain't gonna say knockoff versions, because everybody got their own lane, but you definitely the first.
Yeah,
So
and I feel like I am. I mean, it's not well, it is to toot my own horn and
yeah,
to
yeah, it is what
kind
it
of give
is. Just
myself a pat on the back. I released these in 2020, and since the release of them, I have seen some additional things happening, with people. And I tell people it's very much like the burger joints. It's very much like bread. Somebody can be the first, and folks will do their own iterations of it. But I definitely felt like I created a space for myself in mental health where I was the first Black woman, especially to create a therapy card deck for Black folks.
absolutely, absolutely. So if you want the original, I'm not saying it was not good. If you want the original, definitely, we're gonna share this in the link in the bio. Again, like I said, I ain't trying to step on nobody's toes, but you definitely were the first that I saw who conceptualized these therapy cards, and so I
Mhm.
think it's phenomenal. Well, I mean, you know what? Let's just go ahead tell a little bit about just the inspiration. We'll get into the topic, but this is super important because I mean it's just a creative way to engage different people,
Mhm.
and we need it, especially when you talk about resources that are made for us. Oftentimes we get left out of the conversation. And so who else better than us to create products and services that reach us and that speak our language? So tell a little bit about the My Therapy cards.
And you're absolutely correct. We're left out of the conversation. And in the field of mental health, we've been left out of the field of mental health as far as healing goes for a long time. I like to tell people like the history of mental health hasn't always been one where it's been welcoming to Black folks. We have traditionally in this field been looked at as people who need better help being civilized, need better help being less criminal. So
Mhm.
when you see the field of mental health historically, just an overview, this hasn't always been a field where we felt welcomed. So being a Black woman operating as a psychologist in this space, there's kind of like a love-hate relationship with it because I understand the impact that it's had on my people. And I also understand the ways that I'm trying to create a different engagement or different interaction with the mental health field for people who look like me.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Texas, I was the only Black woman psychologist practicing in the city where I live. And that is not acceptable because we had other therapists and therapists are cool. Everybody's doing their own thing. But when you think about when you get to the PhD level credentialing, there are some things that we need to do as far as assessment goes that some people at the master's level can't do. And so when you think about the people who are providing those assessments, who are providing those high level interventions, it's not people who look like us, but they're doing it for people who look like us. So that's problematic. It's one thing to be a therapist, it's another thing to also be a person who can conceptualize, do research, that kind of thing. And if you don't have that for people in the city that look like you, that's problematic. So being the only Black woman here, I was like, this is a problem. I
Yeah.
knew that I wanted to provide therapy, but I knew that I also wasn't going to be able to provide therapy to every Black person who needed it in this city. So I just kind of like since I got here was like, how can I help? What can I do? The insurance companies at that time, and I don't accept insurance, but a lot of people can't practice outside of state lines because
Mhm.
of one, ethics and state laws, and also insurance is not going to pay. So
Mhm.
some people can get to therapy. Our laws keep us stuck in particular places. So I said, I would love for people to have a tool where they could feel like they were talking to me, even if they weren't talking to me.
Yep.
So I took the questions that I asked in therapy and I put them in a card deck. And I said, well, we like cards and we like to gamify some things. So what better way to reach my people and to get them the things that they need than to put it in a format that we're all used to and accustomed to and that we know how to recognize and that's less less threatening, so to speak. And so I
Absolutely.
just questions and I put them in a card deck and I said, well, if I can't work with them, at least they can have some questions that a psychologist is asking them who looks like them, and then they can do the work. And it just grew from there.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So next time you playing spades, just
Yeah.
slide my therapy cards and just tell me something you've been working on.
Right. Somebody's gonna be very upset. We already know how spades go. Somebody's gonna be very upset.
Get everybody around the table and just pull out my therapy cards and let's unpack some of the stuff that we know exists. So
Let's
well,
unpack why
listen,
we're so angry. Why we so mad at this spades game? Like why we get so upset? Yeah.
why you upset? Because you're losing. So today's topic, is healthy ways to have a conversation
Mhm.
about a spouse, a family member, a friend's health. And the reason why this is super important, obviously, I mean, we get one body, we get one life to live, so we want to lead healthy lives. But amidst these conversations, there's also a lot of negativity, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of shame that comes about. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure put on us to look a certain way, particularly women, I believe.
Mhm.
When it comes to just weight, size, and images, we're inundated. I mean, it can go left real quick. And so
Mhm.
sometimes we avoid having the conversation about health because we don't want to fall into that category. But
Mhm.
it's one that we still need to have. So
Yeah.
let's just start at a super high level. When you're talking to a spouse or a significant other, whoever, someone you love, about their weight or their
Mhm.
health, you know, what should you consider? Like what should you think about as you approach this conversation?
I think, especially if we're going to talk about it from a high level, one of the things I like to lead in with is I think people have got to understand how we got here. And it's
Mhm.
not how that person got here, how we got here, and not how we got here as far as our eating habits go, and how we got here as far as how we judge people based on the bodies that they live in and the habits that they have and that kind of thing. So I like to take us way back.
Yeah, let's do
Um,
it.
way back to the racist roots of diet culture. So a lot of it, I read this book called Fearing the Black Body
Mm,
by Sabrina Strings. And for me, it just clicked something in me that I was like, whoa. So diet culture is super oppressive,
mm.
right? So it's diet culture is rooted in anti-blackness, is rooted in racism. So when you think about that in the ways that it was formed, it was actually created as a way for white people to set themselves more apart from
Mm,
black people as grotesque, as people who are unable to be satisfied, people who are greedy, people who are gross. And because the way that our bodies are naturally made, if you remember Sarah Bartman, the
mhm,
woman with the big butt, if you think about her body being on display for white people to look at and to gawk at and to judge, basically like a circus. She was an exhibit.
mhm.
So basically, black bodies look different, white bodies look different. And how can we further set ourselves apart? And how do you be more white, less black?
Yeah.
Right. So when philosophers and doctors started to create what is called this weight norm, it was to create more of a separation between whiteness and blackness. White people look like this, black people look like this, and if you want to look less black, you should look like this, which is a European standard of beauty that
Mhm.
we are accustomed to today. And if we think about the thinness, thin being a thin white woman is what they told us, or a thin white person is what they told us we should try to attain.
Yeah.
So we should try to shrink our body so that we're healthy, healthy meaning looking more skinny, more thin, more like a European white person
Mhm.
at the time. That translated throughout the beauty standard medical industry for years, and that's how we end up here now. But also, we can't talk about being here without also talking about the impact of racism on where we live. So
Mm,
a lot of Black people lived in food deserts. A lot of Black
mhm,
people didn't have access to quality food, didn't have access to education about food, didn't have access to produce or things like that, just in food deserts and in areas where land was not able to be cultivated. And we can even go deeper than that. The farmers having their land taken away from them and zoned in a way where they actually couldn't provide for themselves. So we talk about our access to food and our relationship with food. It didn't just end up that we don't know what to eat. This is all a
yeah,
systemic issue, and part of the consequence that we're seeing is the system, the impact and consequence of systemic oppression is what we see in our communities as it relates to the poor food choices and the poor health. But what diet culture likes to do and what white supremacy is rooted in is making the issue the individual's
Mm,
problem and not naming the system as a problem. So it's easy to say, you just need to learn how to eat. I'm worried about your weight, and saying, you know what? Based on how you grew up, I can see why you didn't quite learn anything about buying healthy food or what healthy food was. But also, I can see why you didn't have access to it because you didn't have money and you didn't have jobs. Right.
mhm.
And so instead of naming all of that, because somebody will have to take responsibility for that, it
Absolutely.
puts it on the Black community and the Black individual and people of color, to be quite honest, to take care of that problem. So when you come present day to see a family member whose weight you may be worried about, we have to understand, how did this person get here? And something we need to consider is a question like that. How did we get here? What could potentially have been this person's experience? How has this person's experience differed from mine? Because we all the time tend to look at other people's bodies and want them to change. But
Yeah.
something we need to consider is, why do I want them to change?
Mm,
Why is their body not something that I approve of? And a lot of it is rooted in our own conditioning
mhm,
around fat phobia and the
mhm.
lies that we've been taught to believe around heart disease and cholesterol. And I know somebody listening to this going to say, but those are issues. They're issues, but they're not the main issues causing issues and problems in our community. But because it's widely spread, we latch on to that information as true. And we don't look at the range of issues that also exist for folks. There are issues like fibroids, hormonal imbalance, that lead to heart disease in Black women, but we will chalk it up to it being something rooted in food because that's what the industry is based in and rooted around. So we
Yeah.
kind of got to get a little bit more critical around, why is this a problem, and is this my own bias and my own issue with my own body? So we can dive deeper into that and continue
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. What is just on that? Because I think that's super important because even people hearing this, I mean, I know some people to you, and I'm glad you said it, they'll go to, yeah, but these are real issues.
Yeah,
And it's not to undermine those, but again, you have to look at things in context, understand not only the history from that predates that individual, but then even just environment, family dynamics. I'm
mhm,
from the South, so I mean,
mhm, yeah,
I'm still unlearning some South ways, especially when
mhm,
it comes to eating. But
yeah,
tell me a little bit about some of those misconceptions, whether it's through
yeah.
diet culture, whether it's through weight, whether it's through just what we consider healthy.
Mhm.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have as they explore this topic?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say, like, I like that you pointed out, I'm not going to say that we don't have those health issues. High blood pressure is prevalent. Those issues still exist. Diabetes still exists. All those things exist. That's not to say that that's not true. But the fact that we attach immediate death to those
Mhm.
things is
Yeah,
a misconception. Like high blood pressure, you're going to die. You
yeah.
have diabetes, you're going to die. Like the fear that is happening in our community and the fear mongering that has happened around some of these health issues, I think is kind of like pulling the wool over our eyes and basically keeping us stuck and paralyzed, and that's what we go to. So when we see a larger person, the first thing we say to them is, oh, you're going to die, not
Mhm.
understanding that another misconception is a larger body doesn't mean unhealthy and a smaller body doesn't mean healthy.
Yeah.
So we lose the ability to think critically when we go to these very extreme ways of concluding what a person's body means about their health. So when we can conclude and rapidly go to, oh, you're going to die, then
Mhm.
that keeps us from having space to think flexibly and more critically about what potential solutions there could be to help a person right there, their behavior. Because if death is the answer, we're immediately going to want to go to the other end, which is completely opposite of
Mhm.
what is death. Then you need to do this. And that's why a lot of things don't stick with us, is because we go to the very opposite end and we miss all the gray area in between, right?
Oh,
So a misconception is that a body, you can tell a person's health by their body.
mhm.
Another misconception is that if you just eat well, you're going to be well.
Mm.
Um, Huge misconception. Doesn't mean that there's no truth in it, but it's a huge misconception. I know people who've eaten well their whole lives and end up with cancer.
Yep.
I know people who eat well their entire lives and end up with diseases that they can't explain, body issues they can't explain. And I've seen people eat poorly who never have even have to go to the doctor. So these issues, or eat poorly as people tell us it is, right? And I think that we've got to kind of like begin to ask ourselves, why is that so? And why is it that people who work out, exercise, all these things, um, we're not seeing the outcomes that we were told we should see. Also, a misconception is if you just work out and go to the gym, then you'll lose weight. One of the things that we don't realize about weight loss and going to the gym is it's a process, and it's very dynamic, and it takes a whole set of other factors to manipulate weight. And sometimes people's bodies, depending on the psychological things that they have going on or the physical things, weight loss is just not in the equation. But diet culture has taught us that if you go to the gym, the outcome is guaranteed to lose weight. So a lot of times you'll see people give up on working out or give up on moving their bodies because they're not seeing the results that they were promised. And that's
Mm.
understandable. But we have to understand that that's a misconception and it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
The last misconception that I'll name is that if you eat well, then your body, if you eat well and train a particular way that a person tells you you're supposed to train, then you'll have a particular type of body. We're not taking genetics into account. We're
Mhm.
not taking your own internal makeup into account.
Yeah.
And really, what I had to learn myself is that your body's going to do what your body wants to do. And if your
Mhm.
body wants to be larger, your body's going to be larger. And that doesn't mean that you're unhealthy or you're not working out. And so these are the things we just have to unlearn a lot. And us being from Mississippi, a lot of this stuff was kind of ingrained. I internalized a lot, and that impacted my relationship with food tremendously. So just
Absolutely.
knowing those things aren't true was helpful.
Yeah, you say you're from Mississippi. I'm from Memphis, so you
Mhm.
from the South.
That's the truth. Yep. Yep.
We talk about unlearning. This stuff is so ingrained
Mhm.
that we don't even realize that we've been conditioned.
Yep.
Um, how do you help someone become okay with their physical appearance and say they're doing all the things of giving a good faith effort, and it's still not matching up to whatever image they have in their mind?
Mhm.
How do they be content with wherever they are?
I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. It's
Okay.
very hard to be content in your body when the world around you tells you that your body is bad.
Mm.
It's very hard to accept the body that you have when this world wasn't set up for bodies like yours, right? So it's all good in theory for us to talk about, oh, just love your body and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
be
Give yourself a
okay with
hug
your
and all
body,
that.
all that stuff. But then you get to the movie theater and the seat wasn't created for you. Or you
Mm.
go to the store and your size cannot be found. Or you go on the plane and you have to pay extra. So all of that stuff around just loving your body is very hard to do when you live in a world and a society where you're just continuously oppressed. So I can see why
Mm.
people want to manipulate their bodies. I can see why people want to have surgeries because people just want to not have to think about these things and they want not to have to like be the person on the outside. They just want to be normal, so to
Yeah.
speak. I can see why people would want to do these things. So what I would tell people is it's a lot of unlearning that has to happen.
Okay.
And it's a lot of education that has to happen. And then we can see about what your options may be for changing your body or getting healthier if you feel like you're not healthy. But part of that is naming it's not just you. And I can't tell you how many people have felt relieved to just kind of like let out a sigh of relief when you're like, it's not you. It's not
Mhm.
completely you. There are also some other factors like racism and oppression and systemic issues, the medical industry that's continuing to create problems for you that there is no way, it's almost impossible for you to fix. Right.
Yeah.
And so when you name those things and they feel like it's not me, they're like, okay, so now I can accept my body and then now I can change it. But we are trying to do the opposite. We're trying to change and accept the change. But even if you change it and you haven't accepted the body that you have, your change is never going to be good enough. You can probably
Mhm.
ask anybody who's ever lost weight. They may feel good because now they are within normal range, right? But there's always something else that they're looking at their bodies to change.
Yep.
So the contentment and the acceptance is not there. And so what I try to do is to put the acceptance there. And
Mm.
then from that place, try to figure out what changing your body may look like. And you'll find that it's very different. So some
Mm.
people just want to lose weight. And so I'll ask the question, would you be okay if you were healthy and never lost weight? And you'll hear some people like, actually, I've never thought about that. And no, I want to lose weight. And so they're not even thinking about the healthy part. So if
Mm.
we work towards getting you to understand what your definition of healthy is, then you can start to set realistic goals for yourself. You can start to not feel so much shame and guilt and beating up on yourself. Because when your goal is weight loss and weight loss alone, the goals that we have around it is unrealistic.
Mm.
I want to drop 50 pounds in 2 months, or I want to lose
Yeah,
100 pounds by Christmas.
about to get on it. Look, Monday I'm back. Shoot, by Christmas time, we create a vacation, spring break.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Acceptance and accepting your body for this helps you to set more realistic goals and helps you to be a lot more patient and understanding with yourself as you try to hit some of those goals that will get you to the place you want to get to.
Speaking on that, I used to live in Dallas, and Dallas, I'm not going to say it was the capital, but they had just a massive amount of like plastic surgery
Yeah.
facilities and places like that. What are your thoughts on that? What if someone says, I'm working out, I'm healthy, but I want to, do this to my body or do
Mhm.
that to your body? Do you ever see that accomplishes the goal, or is it an kind of outward solution to an internal problem? Like, just generally, what are your thoughts on that?
You just named it. It's an outward solution to an internal problem. I think that this is so layered. And what I tell people all the time is this your body. You can do what you want with your body. So I'm always going to promote body autonomy because I think that we have the right to do what we need and feel like we want for our bodies, even if we're misinformed about it. We have
Okay.
the right to use the information that we have data to access to at that time and make decisions based on the information that we have at that time. A lot of people don't know that there are going to be problems after surgery. They have no idea the amount of physical issues that come with surgery because they're not being informed. The
Mhm.
doctors remember surgery is the number one money maker in the medical industry. So the
Yeah.
more people they can get to have surgery, the more money that they get to pocket.
Mhm.
And so part of this I see is very negligent of the medical industry is because they're promoting something that exploits a particular population of people. For my own experience, I was small and I was unhealthy, but nobody ever recommended surgery to me.
Mm.
But if I was in a larger body, guess what they would have recommended? Weight loss and then weight
Yeah,
loss surgery.
you
So
ever thought about surgery, or yeah.
they're specifically targeting a particular type of person and they don't care whether you know what it means to be actually healthy or not.
Mhm.
They are telling us, and most people believe doctors, because why wouldn't you, right? They believe that doctors are like, well, this will help you be healthier. When after surgery, so many people are dependent on supplements and medicine for the rest of their lives. And a number of people have died because of complications from those surgeries. It's
Mhm.
very rare that I've seen surgery be something that benefits people long term without them having so many health complications.
Wow.
And I'm not going to lie, some people in life or death situations are going to need those surgeries.
Uh-huh.
And so it's there, but it's supposed to be there. Surgery is supposed to be a life or death procedure.
Mm, mhm.
And everybody who's in a large body is not at a life or death place.
Place,
But
yep.
they're recommending it for aesthetic reasons. They're recommending it because they know it's a money grab,
Mm,
and so people are misinformed. And again, like we said before, they're telling you if you're big, you're gonna die.
mhm.
And so they plant that fear in you, and now you're thinking this is your only option, right? But they're not telling you the back end. And I don't blame people for
Yeah.
wanting to go towards the option that's going to get them the fastest results when they've tried everything.
Mhm.
One of the main setups of diet culture is that you try the gym, you try fasting, you try all these diets, and you literally have tried everything.
Mhm.
And I look at that as a gateway. It's basically like shuffling you through the hallways right to surgery. They
Mhm.
know none of that stuff is gonna work, but
Yeah.
it's shuffling you right along to the surgery meal.
Mhm.
And some people are gonna bow out along that journey, but some people you can tell the shuffling has happened all
Gotta
the way.
keep going. Yeah, yeah. You just it's just like just plant the seed, right? Hey, have you tried to do this? People like, yeah, it's like the infomercial at 2 a.m.
Yeah, yeah, the infomercial 2 a.m.
You want a six pack? I'm like, yeah, I do want a six pack.
I do. I would love a six pack because
Have
that's
you
what
tried
y'all
working out? Yeah, I tried working out.
you should probably try this supplement, right? You should probably try. Now we have medication that people are taking, and they're taking it in increasing numbers, right? We are even seeing now, talk about that pipeline from diet to surgery. We're seeing people now talk about medication or weight loss programs for children. Like
Mm,
these big name programs having children components to it or pediatric components to it. And something's just not okay
yeah.
about a person whose brain is not fully developed being told that their body isn't good enough and then let's do something now about that at this severe of a level. So we got some work to do, and it's not okay.
We do. We really do. What about, so let's just say someone's in a relationship, right? And they're trying to be supportive to the spouse, like, hey,
Mhm,
want to kind of walk with you in this journey, but they're seeing them make these decisions
mhm,
that are just unhealthy.
yeah,
McDonald's, or drinking Sprites, whatever, Coke,
mhm,
it can be whatever, right? How do you encourage the person who's trying to be a support to be supportive in a healthy way, without kind of creating that division or trying to impose how they've been conditioned, because I'm
yeah,
sure a lot of it is coming from their own biases, misinformation,
mhm,
etc. How do they have that conversation, but in a way that doesn't feel as if I'm trying to make you someone else?
yeah. I mean, it's a tightrope.
Yeah.
It's a fine line. It's a tightrope, and a lot of us are going to be focused on the things that we see as problematic in ourselves, right? And if we have body issues, then we're going to see our partner's body issues, right? So it's almost like if I go to the gym and my partner's not going, why are you not going to the gym? So I
Mhm.
try to make what's important to me important for them. But what
Mhm.
I like to tell people too in relationships, especially ones that have been going on for a while, is this person didn't just get like this.
Yeah.
We knew who they were before.
Mhm.
So we got to be asking the questions beforehand. They
Yeah.
didn't get like this, but some stuff we think is cute and we don't talk about before, and until
Mhm.
it becomes a problem, but we need to be talking about it. But
Yeah.
we're scared. We don't have the language, right? So you meet a person, and we need to be having these conversations. How do you feel if my body changed? How would you
Mm.
feel if I started to eat like this? And it's good when you meet a person they can cook and like, oh, she from Mississippi, she can
Oh,
cook.
yeah, 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 that's the first thing I'm thinking. I'm like,
Yeah,
Mississippi.
like, oh, she can cook, but we don't talk about what that looks like 5 years from now, right? So,
Yeah.
we gotta be having these conversations before about what do you value? What's
Mm.
balance? What does balance look like to you? So, if we're further along and now we're here with the problem, right? And you're seeing that your partner is having problems, they may be having joint issues, they may be having, medical tests come back with high numbers, and you see them not changing their behaviors to help themselves get in better ranges, right? Then we can have the conversation of, hey, what does this mean to you?
Yeah.
How are you taking this all in?
Mhm.
How is this sitting with you? Do you even care about it? Do you even know how to change? Do you even want to change? Because we'll automatically think that if somebody's struggling or having physical symptoms, that they automatically want to change. Some people don't want to change.
Yeah.
And
True.
you can ask the question, do you want to change? Do you know how to change? What
Yeah.
and the main question I ask people to ask, how can I support you?
Yeah.
What is it that you need me to do? What is going on for you? And I'm not asking you to become somebody's therapist, but if we ask open-ended questions, we'll get more information from people than talking at them. Well,
Mhm.
I'm not buying any more Cokes for the house. And now that person's gonna drink Cokes somewhere else. Oh, I'm not buying any more chips from the house. They're gonna be eating chips in the car.
I'll put down. No more chips at the house. Yeah, then
They'll be
you
eating
shame
chips in the car.
when you see a McDonald's bag in the car, like, "Man, I thought
Right.
we talked
Right.
about this," you know?
You come home, they're not hungry because they already ate on the way to the house.
Yeah,
So you got problems now because
"You
they
ain't
think
hungry?"
you're not hungry. I thought, well, I'm just full.
Yeah, yeah, I'm good. Do you think that's a deal breaker? Going back, say, and again, I know it all depends, right? Everybody values different things. And so this is really on an individual level, but just general thoughts. Do you think if you are dating someone
Mhm.
and let's say you're kind of seeing a pattern, unhealthy, maybe lifestyle, and it may be diet related or health related, but it could be just you're not sleeping and just overall lifestyle. Do you feel like that's something that is a red flag?
It depends on what your values are. And I know I keep saying that, but it can't be so for instance, if you playing the video game till 2 o'clock in the morning is something that you do. If I'm a gamer, that's not a red flag. But if
Mm,
I'm not a gamer, that's a red flag. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So it depends on what your values are and what your lifestyle is, right? So if
Mm,
my lifestyle is one where I prioritize my health and one where I like to think that I take care of my body, I like to always be kind of moving and I like to be doing the things that I know make me feel well. If
mhm.
that is something that you're not into, then yes, I need to be thinking critically about how this is going to show up later if this is a person I want to be with.
Yeah.
Sometimes we want to be with people so much that we overlook some things that will then become deal breakers in the end. So we got to be honest with ourselves about what our values are. And a lot of us just don't sit down to think about what our values are. We think about, oh, what's going to make, what do I want in a partner? I want tall, dark, handsome, and
Mhm.
beard, blah, 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 blah. And they need to be making this amount of money. We're not thinking anything about if they're 65 years old, am I going to want to take care of them if their body does X, Y, and Z, right? We're not thinking that far ahead. And I blame part of our dating culture, part of our relationship culture on that because we are not really taught how to talk about values in a relationship and how to talk about things that are important to us and what we're going to try to build. We talk about building financially, we talk about
Mhm.
building a family, but we talk about religious aspects of relationships, but we don't
Yeah.
really talk about values as far as what do you feel as far as health goes. And I think that's
Mhm.
usually left out of the conversation. Financial health, mental health. Oh, we don't talk about mental health either. Mental
Yeah.
health and physical health are things that
Until somebody does something, then it's like, oh, wait a
oh, I didn't know that was there. Yes, we did. It's
until we
always
get to diagnose it, like, how you with a narcissist? Like, okay,
oh,
wait.
oh. Yeah, but when he was flying you out, it was fine.
Yeah, it was good. It's good. Then he's ready to leave.
Right?
Now you got mental health issues. So,
So it's a deal breaker if it's out of line with my values, but we don't know how to assess that. And so we got to get good at assessing that for ourselves. And honestly, I mean, this is a shameless plug, but it wasn't meant to be. But I actually just created a relationship deck of the therapy cards. And this is to help us get a little bit more aware of what we are doing in our relationships, help us slow down.
put it up to the camera so people can see. I don't know if it's sneak peek. You saw it
Yeah,
here
this is
first.
the relationship deck.
I loved it. I loved it.
And so it's to help us get a little bit more clear about who we are in relationship to other people and what we want in our relationships, because that list of blah, 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 blah only works for so long. And we got to really be willing to do the hard work. So talking about a red flag really is going to depend on what is important to you.
Okay. Now I see this a lot, and that is someone goes through a breakup. All
Mhm.
right. And then they make these dramatic changes. Sometimes it's in the area of exercise, health. Say the spouse is like, man, I want you to do this, I want you to, and you can see it in so many different ways. They'll be
Mhm.
sitting there playing video games, and all of a sudden he in law school, like, whoa, where was that energy when we were dating? Same
Yeah.
thing you see sometimes. Bad breakup, then they like, go to the extreme. Do you feel like that's sustainable? And how can people tap into whatever it is that may be motivating them in a healthy way, and then not being on the cusp of like a traumatic experience? Like, how do
Mhm.
we kind of tap into our full potential before someone leaves or before something, you know, bad happens? Like,
I think about relationships like chemical interactions,
okay.
medication interactions. And depending on my body, if I'm taking Advil, but I also decide to take something else, I got to be careful about the interactions because those two chemicals of what
Mhm,
I'm taking and what I've already taken, plus my body makeup, could create an interaction in me that is not well, that is not good, or that could be potentially threatening, right?
mhm.
You don't think about human connections in that way.
Okay.
We're going to get with some people who are going to bring out the absolute best in us, and that interaction and what our makeup and their makeup is going to blend really well. Sometimes we're getting with people that's causing some adverse interactions,
Mhm,
right? Just
mhm.
like chemical interactions. And
Yeah.
so you'll get with one person, and because of their dynamics, what they accept, what they're like, their personality, their temperament, you will be gaming all night because
Mhm,
I mean, that's just what the interaction is bringing out. Then you'll get with somebody else, and you'll be like, oh, so now you want to clean up.
mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now you want to take care of things, right? Because
Mhm,
it's the interaction. So we will bring out things in people that will be good or bad, and somebody else will bring out things in them that will be good or bad. That's why you can see two good people get together and be
mhm,
completely chaotic.
mhm.
And we because the
Yeah,
interaction
see it all the time.
it all the time, right? And so we got to be cognizant of the people we are interacting with and the things that are going on and the dynamics that are being created based on what we're both bringing into that interaction, right? So when you see somebody going now after a bad breakup, yes, sometimes that is a trauma response. You're like, oh, I have to get it together. So
Yeah,
now
I'm gonna show you.
I have to do it now because I don't have anything else to rely on. that could be sustainable because that may have been the wake up call that they needed. So it just really depends on the person and who they are. But some people can get really complacent in their relationships,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
complacent and not want to do anything, and then may have a moment where they're like, oh, say a baby comes or some life event happens. They're like, oh, I need to get it together. And so some of that stuff is sustainable, but sometimes we're just in a complacent state. And
Mm.
sometimes people are responding to a trauma or a life altering experience that they're like, let me move towards this. And then they'll slow down. But typically for folks, when they wake up to things, they tend to be it tends to be a little bit more sustainable. Trauma response or not. I tell
Mm.
people all the time I became a psychologist as a trauma response. And here I
Okay.
am.
Yeah, it worked out. It worked out for you. This is completely off topic, but I need to talk to the pros on this one. So you
Mhm.
see people, I'm not really on social. I mean, I'm on there, but I'm not like
Mhm.
on social media. But you see these images, body positivity, and
Mhm.
is slick half naked. Do you feel like that is a healthy form of body positivity? Like, what are your thoughts?
Mhm.
You see someone posting on the gram, is that wrong? Is that a
Mhm.
personal choice? Is it not wrong or right? People just celebrating their body. Like, what
I
from a
mean,
professional?
I don't think it's wrong or right. I think that our lives are being curated by social media. And so I don't think people are doing anything other than what they've done with regard to any other trend. The
Mm,
reason we're seeing it now is because we all have our phones, we all have our computers, right? Back in the day, like in the 90s or so, we only had newspapers. We did
mhm.
not have all of this. So we didn't know who was taking a picture of what, right?
Yeah,
We didn't know you send out, the moving to the 2000s, we didn't know what people were seeing when those little Polaroids were coming out or those developed film were coming out at the pharmacy, right?
yeah,
We
yeah.
don't
Little
know what
Walgreens dude was gonna keep his poker face on.
we know what the Walgreens people were seeing, right? They could have been seeing all kinds of stuff. I'm sure they
Mhm.
were.
Yeah,
Um, but now on social media, we're seeing it even more. So it's like it's new. It's not new. People have
yeah,
been doing this, but I am all for people being proud of their bodies. And I think that people are doing what they feel like is going to be in line with what is acceptable given our trends right now, given our
yeah.
norm and our trends right now. We're in this culture where we've learned to become dependent on clicks for validation, likes for
Mhm.
validation. So if you are a person who's struggling with not getting enough validation and need for external validation, you gotta go to social media.
Yeah,
And so I can't really crucify or criticize people for doing what social media was designed to do, which was get you to become dependent on external validation. So that's
yeah,
what I see when I am seeing this. And I think that folks are just hopping on trends, trying to become influencers, trying to
mhm,
get their piece of the pie with the money that's being made. And so when you see people taking off their clothes and things like that, I feel like that's just where we are now.
yeah,
And I, on the one hand, I like it, and on the other hand, I just know that it's just where we are. It's a trend.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I'm with you 100%. Few more questions. So let's say someone, they have an unhealthy relationship with food. What
Mhm.
would you recommend is a practical first step?
Mhm. A practical first step is I encourage people to really think about getting your body. A lot of us have a hard time getting inside of our bodies.
Mhm.
Trauma takes that away from us. It's not safe there. So many other reasons,
Yeah,
right? But if you can, ask yourself, what is this guilt about? Because most of the relationship with food stuff is centered around adverse experiences and judging yourself and critiquing yourself. So what is this guilt about? Why do I feel guilty? Why do I
yeah,
feel shame? Why do I feel scared to eat
mhm,
certain things? Why am I putting all these rules on myself?
yeah,
What is this about? So I just invite people to get really, really curious. I'll tell you one practical place. I tell people to start to where they will notice what their relationship with food is stemming from. Being from, I mean, I feel like as Black people, we've all had a set of experiences that are the same. But
mhm.
for some people, they've heard, don't if you don't eat all your food, the kids in Africa are going to starve. One moment we
You better
just
finish that plate. Yeah.
don't finish your plate and see what
Mhm.
arises for you,
Yeah,
right? See what arises for you. If you're stuffed and you are still trying to eat, see what's coming up for you. Even if you finish eating all the food and you're stuffed, just take a moment to think about, Why did I do that?
Mm.
What messaging was that? Well, I was told that I need to eat all my food, or I was
Mhm.
made to eat all my food, or I couldn't go outside, or I couldn't go to sleep. So you'll see that your relationship with food is rooted in poor messaging and likely trauma.
Yeah.
Being told, being sleep deprived because you wouldn't eat a certain thing,
Mhm.
not being able to listen to your body. And so a lot of these messages really indirectly taught us you can't trust yourself. You got to trust an outside person to tell you what's best for your body. So
Mm.
I learned that what's best for my body is going to come from somebody else. It's not going to come from me. Like,
Mm.
whoa. So now I got to get comfortable trying to tell myself what I need to eat. So another practical thing that people can do is leave the food on the plate.
Mm.
See
Okay.
what guilt comes up. See what message it comes. See how hard it is for you to walk away. I've been eating something before and I'm like, but I just gotta finish it. And I'm like, what
Mhm.
is it about? So I walk myself reluctantly over to the trash can and throw it away. Now it's my job to sit with that discomfort of throwing food away because now I have to unlearn that I didn't waste food. I was done.
Mhm. You're
I
done,
was
yeah.
and
All
me
those early memories of being in Mississippi come back up, and it's
yeah.
like, "Just threw that
And
food
guess what?
away."
Dr. Nick, that little bit of rice that I just threw away is not gonna feed the whole continent of Africa. So it's
Nah.
faulty thinking, but
Mm.
we don't get a chance to poke holes in the faulty thinking unless we try to do something different.
Yeah.
I tell people a real one, go to a restaurant and don't ask for a to-go box. You'll see where a lot of your money messaging came from or how it makes you feel. You'll see where a lot of your food messaging came from and how it makes you feel. Because the immediate thought that's going to come up, I'm not wasting my money. What did you learn about money? And many of us are operating from a place of scarcity, and that's what's driving us to kind of engage in the ways that we are.
I love that. I really do. I can't tell you how many leftover boxes I probably got in the refrigerator
Really?
that I eventually end up throwing away. I know at the time, I mean, I'm not finna eat this rice
Yeah.
2 days from now, but
Right.
something in me is like, yeah, let me get two to go boxes. You know, even
Yeah.
my little daughter, I'm like, put them chicken fingers in the box.
Nobody's going to eat that.
Maybe them
Nobody's
chicken
going to eat
fingers.
that. So the next time y'all do that, leave the food and
Hey,
see. It's
I'm
going
gonna try.
discomfort. It's going to be a lot of discomfort. You're going to go back and forth with yourself. And even if you do end up getting the to go boxes, just notice, man, that was an interesting experience. I'm going to try to go longer next time. I'm going to try it again next time. And so you work your way up to saying, you know what? I'm going to leave this here.
Yeah,
And
that's
I might
good.
not be the happiest person walking out of that restaurant, but at least I showed myself that I can do something different than what I've conditioned, what I've habitually been doing just because somebody told me I had to do it.
Yeah. Look, 12 o'clock at night, I get the munchies. I'm be like, man, Dr. Ebony, man, I knew I should have got that cheesecake.
So guess what you teach yourself? Guess what? Because we operating out of scarcity. Guess what you can do? I'm pretty sure you live in a place where you can go to your refrigerator and get something to eat if you get the munchies.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But we think we don't. And in that moment when we are operating in scarcity, we're like, nothing is available to me. I don't have anything. We're right back in that place we were raised by a single
Mhm.
mother in Mississippi where we don't have food and we got to take it. You have to remind yourself, I'm not there though. If
Yeah.
I get the munchies, I'm not there anymore. I
We
can go
good.
make something if I'm hungry.
I can tell them to keep that little corner of the cheesecake. Like you don't have to box it up. So awesome. Dr. Ebony, I appreciate you so much. Where can people find you at? You know, if someone says,
Yeah.
hey, you know, I want to work with you, there's so many states, you know, I know you mentioned it earlier, but I really do encourage anyone who's listening, obviously, whether it's from an individual counsel, I know you do some consulting work with
Mhm.
companies, different organizations. Tell us a little bit about that piece of it as well,
Yeah.
too. I think this is a message that extends. I mean, we talk about some of the systematic
Mhm.
issues, and so when you talk about, you know, whether it's some of the products that you offer or even just some of the consulting work, I think
Mhm.
it's important for people to know that this extends beyond just individual counseling. Where
Yeah.
can people find you at?
Yeah, so my website is drebony.com. Simple as that. And I have a number of places on there where you can learn more about the work that I do. But I do love speaking to other mental health professionals about ways that we can challenge our own relationship with food because a lot of us are in session with folks reconfirming diet culture,
Mhm.
reconfirming a lot of these biases and reinforcing a lot of things that are faulty. So when I'm having these conversations with um, Association of Marriage and Family Therapists or psychological associations, I'm helping us understand that a lot of the things we are bringing into the room continue to be problematic. So, how do we shift that? How do we change that? So, I do a lot of consultation work there. I also do a lot of speaking with organizations around just how to begin to think differently about our relationship with food. I call it a decolonized perspective as it
Mm,
relates to our relationship with food. So, how can we begin to even just have these conversations and have this way of thinking that we can continue to just kind of like work at? Because this is going to take a long time because we're
yeah,
constantly in society that's promoting diet culture. We're about to come up heavy on it now in the holiday season and the new year, right? So it's always going to be here. It's been here for years, but trying to change something that constantly evolves is going to be hard. So we'll be having these conversations for a long time, right? So
yeah.
I do a lot of consultation there. I used to have a program for individuals to come in and just learn more about food relationships and how they can
Mhm.
begin to think differently about their own individual lives. I haven't run that one since the therapy cards have come out because those took a whole life of its own, but that is still work that I'm super passionate about, and that's also on my website. Um,
Okay.
so drebony.com. I am also on Instagram often. Dr. Ebony Online is
Mhm.
my handle. And you can also learn more about the therapy cards at mytherapycards.com.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you again, sincerely. For everyone listening, thanks so much for tuning in to Untherapeutic. You can definitely follow us online. Nic Hardy underscore. I kind of put it all together. It's not like a separate podcast one, but definitely follow, like, comment, share, and check out some of the other episodes on untherapeutic.com. So thank you guys so much.